opening ceremony of the SDGnexus Network. My name is Helmut Breitmeier, and I am going to guide you through the program of this kickoff meeting during the next 90 minutes. I'm expressing this welcome also in the name of my respected colleagues from this project leader Lutz Breuer and Professor Romona Teuber and Professor Martin Petrick, who are both principal investigators in this project. I'm very glad that I can welcome our partner institutions, the 7 core partners, UniAndes and UNAL in Colombia, Universidad Andina Simón Bolívar and Cuenca in Ecuador, UCA in Kyrgyzstan, UCA in Tajikistan, in Uzbekistan, and my colleagues from the Center for International Development and Environmental Research, ZOI, here in Gießen. I also welcome our 13 collaborating partners in the countries that I mentioned before. My special thanks go to Professor Joy Prato Mukherjee, who will open this ceremony in a double role as president of our university and also as president of the German Academic Exchange Service, DAAD, which is the world's largest funding institution for international exchange of students and researchers, and which is also funding the SDGnexus project. We are also very glad that Mr. Sherif Asab Els, program manager at DAAD for the Excellent Centers for Exchange and Development, also joins us as participant in today's ceremony. And I would like to thank him and his team at DAAD for the support which they provide for the management of this EXCEED project. I also welcome other colleagues who joined us for this opening ceremony, for example, from other EXCEED centers and elsewhere. Finally, I would like to thank Dr. Björn Weser, our project manager at GLU, for organizing this meeting and all other project matters so effectively. We hope that the Zoom platform, which we are using today for this meeting, provides a stable connection for the next roundabout 90 minutes. Let us now begin with the first item on the agenda, the opening of this ceremony. President Mukherjee, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much. Professor Breitmeier, I hope you can hear me. I just demuted myself. Okay, excellent. Well, let me welcome you very heartily in the name of DAAD and of the University of Gießen. As Professor Breitmeier rightly pointed out, I have 2 hats on, if you so wish. And I would like to start with the first hat on, with the DAAD hat, because the kickoff meeting today is the kickoff meeting of one of the 7 projects that DAAD, with funding from the Ministry for Developmental Cooperation and Economic Cooperation, will fund over the next 5 years. And I know that there are also colleagues here following our kickoff event that are responsible for and involved in the other sister projects in this funding program. When we started with EXCEED at DAAD, which was in the year 2009, it all went back to the general idea that we wanted to foster the cooperation between German universities on the one hand and partner universities in other countries in Africa, Asia, Latin America. And we selected back then 5 projects that received funding from 2009 to 2019. And the evaluation of that program was so successful in 2019 that the ministry decided to launch another round of these EXCEED centers. And there we are now with the 7 new projects implemented at the University of Munich, at the University of Kassel, at the Technical University of Berlin, the University of Leipzig, the Technical University of Munich, the University of Applied Sciences at Frankfurt, and the University of Gießen. And this funding line again is meant to provide funding for 5 years with an extension for another 5 years upon positive evaluation. And I think the success story of the first round of 2009 to 2019 will be resonated in these new projects that will now all have their kickoff meetings. Although all these kickoff meetings, as we see today, will take place under severe restrictions and under conditions which we didn't envisage last year when we launched this program for this new round. So I'm very happy to see, and this is the feedback that we receive at DAAD headquarters from all the projects. We are very happy to see that all the 7 projects under these severe restrictions of the pandemic are able to launch their activities, to get together in the networks. And I think one of the reasons why this is possible is that many branches of the networks in these Exceed centers are established networks. People do know each other. And it is then also possible with the digital formats that we also use today to launch these activities, to get in touch with each other, and to have a sustainable building up process for the networks. So what we at DAAD headquarters wish to see, of course, in the not too distant future is that we will get back to face-to-face meetings, that we'll get back from the travel restrictions that are, of course, have a severe impact on this kind of cooperation between partners on different continents. But there is hope, as we can all see in the newspapers. Perhaps next year things will become more relaxed, and we all should look forward to this new situation, or getting back to a new normal situation after this first wave of the pandemic in 2020. Now let me now focus on the project that is harbored by Justus Liebig University Gießen. And I would like to start by thanking, as University President and Vice Chancellor, thanking all those colleagues and researchers, all those people involved that make this success possible. I know this includes a multitude of people. Of course, we have the project leader, Lutz Breuer, and many other colleagues here at Gießen and at the Center for Economic and Environmental Research, for development and developmental and environmental research, the ZOI. So I'm very thankful to the entire team for the application that was successful in the end, and also for the core idea of SDGnexus, which really focuses on the 17 sustainability development goals and focuses in particular on the complementarity, but also on the, if you so wish, competition between these sustainability development goals with regard to perhaps also conflicts in targets between these sustainability development goals. What makes me very happy, of course, as University Vice Chancellor, who is in charge of the internationalization strategy of the university, is that this is again a wonderful constellation where we bring together partners that have worked together for many years, decades actually. So our dear partners from South America are on board again, as in so many other projects. And we have partners from Central Asia. Professor Breitmeier mentioned the core partners at the beginning. And of course, we work together with them also in various projects and have done so for a long time. And now this project brings together these two branches in one single network, operating together and trying to deal with a shared research program in this SDGnexus project. And I think this is the way that bilateral collaborations, network building should be developed. So if you have well-established networks, then I think it's the logical next step to combine established networks with each other and see where an added value can be generated for all of the partners. And I focus a little on Colombia because this is the country where the University of Gießen has been active for more than 60 years now. It all started in the 1960s already. And it included for a very long time also the two core partners that are also part of this network here, Universidad de los Andes and Universidad Nacional de Colombia. And I think this is a very good example of the way that networks can be established for a sustainable research program. And we have many partners here from Colombia also present in this kickoff meeting who are responsible for other networks, other projects that we share with Colombian partners. And I think this is a template for the kind of cooperation and network building that I think also in the light of the pandemic will be characteristic of the future. I think what we see as a global trend is a movement away from a plethora of bilateral links to real sustainable networks involving many partners who work together on shared projects, on shared activities. 20 or 30 years ago, that's our impression at DAAD headquarters, you measured the success of your internationalization strategy by counting the numbers of MOUs on your website. Today, I think this has changed dramatically, and rightly so, because today the focus is on the intensity, on the depth and the range of collaboration with selected partners, strategic partners. And I think this idea of strategic partnership is what is also at the heart of SDGnexus as a project and also as a network of partners who have committed themselves to a long-term research program for the next hopefully 5+5 years. And I think this is a constellation that we also see in the other SDGnexus projects. And in the pandemic, I think these networks, these sustainable networks, these strategic partnerships have shown to be particularly resilient because there is a solid base of trust between the partners and people know each other and have a shared research program. So what I see here now is a project that in a sense is a best practice example of this kind of network building that we also wish to foster with our DAAD funding. And therefore, I hope that this project will be successful over the next first period of funding of 5 years. Hopefully, we will be back to a new normal after the pandemic in the not too distant future. And I wish you a very successful, a fruitful kickoff meeting today. And I hope that the connections here, intercontinental connections, will be stable over the next 90 minutes. So all the best to you, and thank you very much to all the partners that have assembled here to launch this kickoff meeting today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Mukherjee, for the opening of this conference. And also, again, thanks also in the names of all my colleagues from the project for the support that you've provided during the last nearly 2 years during the development phase of this project, and also during the time since the project came into operation, for the administrative support and strategic thoughts that you've provided for the project. So many thanks. Well, let's now move on and go on with the program. I would now like to give Professor Lutz Breuer, the project leader, and Professor Ramona Teuber, principal investigator of this project, the opportunity to describe some basic issues related to the research that we intend to do in this project, and about general aspects related to the project. And Ramona will also inform us about the whole issue of teaching and international collaboration on the teaching of sustainability. So the floor is open for Lutz Breuer first, and then for Ramona.
Yeah, Helmut, thanks a lot. But before I do this, I have a quick question to Björn, because I think we wanted to have a group picture through Zoom, right? Is that correct? And if we do that, I think the group picture should not be with me in the major focus of the whole thing, but everyone being equal and have the same share of the screen. Would that be okay?
Yes, we are ready for this. So we'll switch to a grid view. Everyone is in the picture now. Everyone has the camera on. And we're making some pictures in the background, so able to continue in a few seconds. So maybe smile, everyone. This looks fantastic. Perfect. Thank you very much. I would say we continue with Lutz.
Now it should be online, right? Is it working for everyone?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So thanks, Mr. Breitmeier. Thanks, Mr. Mukherjee, for introducing the project. I have the honor to give you a short introduction on what we are going to do, what the idea of the whole project is. And I think, and I hope that this explosion of colors on the screen is a kind of explosion, what we are going to set on with regard to the research and the teaching, what we are going to do in the next couple of years. We have, was it turning now? Okay. We have established the SDGnexus Network in relation to the call of the DAAD that was asking for differences within the Sustainable Development Goals and research within these different goals. Our start was that we were discussing which kind of SDGs we want to measure or want to investigate. And it turned out rather quickly that we thought a very interesting aspect would be not to have a closer look on a single SDG, but rather take several of them into account. And even further discussion, we said, well, maybe it's even better to take all 17 into our perspective. And this is why we termed the whole project the SDGnexus Network, because we want to investigate the pros and cons, the advantages and disadvantages of the different SDGs. And as you can see here to the right, we have a number of different SDGs that have a direct impact or an indirect impact. They are all driven by externalities such as the availability of food, the availability of water, materials, raw materials, but they also on the same side impact these resources. So the question is, how are we going to manage between these different objectives? And what are the trade-offs that we can find? Is it really possible to improve all of the 17 SDGs at the same time? Or is it not necessarily the case that if you increase one SDG on the one hand, that you have a maybe negative impact on the other? So that was the overall idea when we started to compile the project. As Mr. Mukherjee already said, 7 centers are funded through the Exceed, and we are one of them. Just to give an impression on the difficulty to be successful, there were 35 applications, and we were finally shortlisted and selected as one of them. We were not in the first round from 2009 to 2019 involved in the whole funding scheme, so we started from scratch at the beginning, and we were very happy to be successful. The idea of the whole network is that we have a global community of higher education institutions within our center, and that we want to not only do research within the center, but collaborate with a number of stakeholders. Why have we selected the groups that we are working together with? So our network is for sure a different network than other networks from other centers, but I will come back to that idea in a minute. The overall goal is to promote the Agenda 2030 with regard to the Sustainable Development Goals and strengthen the impact and the capacity of the higher education institutions participating in the network. When we're talking about the network, this is the image we came up with. So we have, on the one hand, the people we're working together with at the University of Gießen. And then we thought and looked upon the different groups where we have strong linkages. And strong linkages at the center that we are working in are on one hand related to Central Asia with TME and UCA, and on the other hand with several universities in Latin America, mainly in Colombia and Ecuador, like UniAndes, UNO, UASB, or UDC. But this network, of course, cannot be everything and do not all the work on its own. We have to have collaborating partners. That's why, apart from the core partners, we have a larger network. And that includes a number of groups and agencies here in Europe or in Germany, We have a number of collaborating partners also in Central Asia, and here in Latin America, the same. Two of them act actually like a kind of a role model for us, which is the CAPAS and the CEMARIN, which are both located in Colombia, and they are large research centers that have been initially funded by the DAAD, and they are setting up now to be permanently funded. At least this is the direction where everyone wants to go to. So the whole network, as I said, is existing of core partners and collaborating partners. But who are we? You've met Björn Weser, at least by email, a couple of times, maybe a lot of times in the past weeks. But to get such a project rolling, we want to have, or we need several more partners. So we have a project management board, which we established at the beginning from partners or from people in our center where we wrote the project together with. These are like Martin Patrick, Pavlina, Helmut, Lutz, Suzanne, and Ramona. We then have a project advisory board, and some of them are already on board also with this kickoff meeting today, like Jennifer Sering, Iskan Abdullayev, and Brigitte Baptiste. But of course, this research network is only a research network if we have researchers on board, and we are part of them, the ones which have been mentioned before. But we have already hired a couple of postdocs like Vladimir, Alicia, and Christoph, who started to work. I mentioned partnered at the SOI and the University of Gießen. One of them here is located to the right, Stefan Peters from CAPAS, but there are several more working at the SOI who will contribute to this project and hopefully make it a successful one. I don't want to introduce all of the partners because later on we have time where the single partners introduce themselves. So stay tuned and we see a couple of these people in the near future. What are our goals? What are the research ideas we have? According to the call from the DAAD, we established 3 main pillars, which are the bottom of this hat. They frame the objectives of our research idea. It's first of all, we have to establish, and we want to establish a research framework, a joint framework together with the partners in Central Asia and Latin America, including the collaborating partners. The idea of the DAAD was that this research network needed not to be predefined upon when we applied for the grant. We will need to develop that in the frame of the project itself. So this is what we are going to do this year and the next years. The second thing is we want to activate our networks. So we want to have a network at the end with higher education institutions and extramural actors, which we jointly work together with. And finally, we will have the agents of change. Those are the alumni, the people who are being trained and who should take over or at least support this network in the next couple of years and maybe even decades. So what we are going now is training the future of several of the countries what we are working together with. The actions related to these objectives are the promotion of young researchers in joint research projects, the integration of a training network together with people, collaborating partners in the different countries, and teaching activities, which will be shortly introduced by Ramona Teuber as well. So let me shortly end up and sum up with the ideas what we have for the research framework. We identified 5 overall topics that we discussed with you, which are food systems, water, urban and rural areas, natural resources, and the SDG monitoring strategy. These are the core research fields that we are going to work on. Of course, there are a lot of interlinkages between the research areas, and we want to work on these linkages. So not a single research area should be investigated by a single researcher or group, but we want to have collaborations between the areas and the groups. So for these things, we have a short spotlights on the research for Latin America and for Central Asia, which will be presented later on. And now I hand over to Ramona, who will have or give you a short introduction to what we are intending to do with regard to the teaching. Part of this has already been established. Ramona, please.
Yeah, thanks Lutz. So you already heard my name several times. So I'm Ramona Teuber. I'm here professor in food and agriculture market analysis. Just for the ones who don't know me, but you saw a picture already. So I'm also very much welcome you and looking forward to collaborate in the future on research topics. But today I will give a little short overview about the more component of teaching. So on the slide before you had or saw already the term virtual master program. So what is meant by this? So we here at the JLU, we are planning, or actually we are already quite developed and planning to set up a fully online master program. It's the title so far is Sustainable Transition. The idea is to be, I mean, especially given the situation right now with the pandemic, of course, it's very up to date, but as we started planning this, we could not really foresee this, but now I think we all are quite experienced with online teaching. So here the idea is really to have that students are not required to come to be present here in Gießen, maybe with few exceptions like summer schools. So to have a fully online master program focusing on sustainable transition. It's highly supported by the university and also by the, I'm sorry, that's always happening if you have an online meeting and you forget to mute your phone, that's about online. I'm sorry, so coming back. So what we think is quite unique here, that there are no study fees included. So you already might know about certain programs around by other universities in this regard, but usually they require study fees. So that's here one unique thing. As I said, we are already quite, how to say, quite concrete. So as we applied for this project, it was just some initial idea, agents of change. Okay, we want to develop this program, especially with the partners to have this master program. Now, as I said, it's highly supported by the faculty and also by the university, and it's placed here on the slide. We just last week got the very great news that it's also supported by another funding scheme offered by the German Academic Exchange Program. So within this international program Digital. So now we really have also another financial support to get this started. So our plan is to actually start next winter term already. So winter semester 2021. The framework is, so it should be full-time for semester 16 modules. So I will not go into details here. The major message is that the target group is international students interested in this whole idea of sustainable transitions or sustainability transitions. So very much linked to our research ideas and ideas here in this SDGnexus Network. So the curricula is a mix of social science, economics, and natural science. And why am I presenting this here? The goal is to also develop modules in a jointly way with you as partners sitting in Central Asia or in Latin America, so that we use this common resources, our common knowledge, to also build up and develop joint modules, potentially maybe even like open educational resources. This is something we should discuss once we are more in some closer contact to each other. So that's what we want to actually highlight today. So to all of you, get involved with us, drop us a line if you think that sounds like a great idea and you would like to become part of this. Thanks a lot.
Well, many thanks, Lutz and Ramona, for your presentations. And I would now like to open the floor for 7 presentations which will be made by our core partners, because one of the important goals of this opening ceremony is, of course, also to learn from each other, which research interests we have and what we are doing and in research and in teaching. And so each of the 7 core partners will be given the opportunity for a presentation. And I would now like first to say that we have approximately 40 minutes time in this for this item. We have 7 speakers, so you will be given approximately 5 minutes time for your presentation, and I'm hoping that you can that you will stick to this time limit. Anyway, we were of course looking forward to all the presentations, and I would now like to open the floor for Professor Andrés Alvarado from Universidad de Cuenca in Ecuador. The floor is open for Professor Alvarado.
Thank you very much, Helmut. Hello, everybody, and good morning from Cuenca, Ecuador. I'm sharing my screen now. Yeah, my name is Andrés Alvarado, and I'm very glad to introduce our team. And our team is located in Cuenca, in the south of Ecuador. We are the 3rd largest city in Ecuador, and we are located in the middle of the Andes mountain range in a nice valley. We are a World Heritage Site, and we are a vibrant city with a lot of natural resources and a lot of water crossing our city. Yes, and we are specifically located in the Universidad de Cuenca. Sorry for the sounds. In Universidad de Cuenca is, as I told you, located in the south of Ecuador, and we are pushing the development of the south of Ecuador and all the region. We are a public university, and we are the leading research university in the south of Ecuador. Our university is a complete university. We have technical, humanities, and medical science in our agenda. Yes, and inside our university, we are the Department of Water Resources and Environmental Science. We are working together for 11 years already, and we are leading the research in our university, especially in natural resources and water specifically. Yes, and we are, as I told you, very well involved in research, but also we are involved in teaching, since we are running a Master of Science program in ecohydrology and also a doctorate in water resources, which will evolutionate in next year in a doctorate in renewable natural resources. We will be running starting next year. Specifically in this project, this is our team. I would like to introduce Joanna and Gabriela in the right side of the screen, and Rolando and Adrian in the left side, and I am in the middle. More people will be part of us in the next year in the activities, of course. And now, specifically in the activities of the SDGnexus Network, I would like to share with you that we are focusing in the Sustainability Development Goals number 6 and number 15, which are clean water and sanitation and live on land. So our research and our activities will focus in understanding the hydrological cycle and the impacts of climate and land use change on water availability, the water quality in high elevation rivers and lakes, and in developing sustainable technologies for decentralized wastewater treatment, in ecosystem restoration, particularly seed germination and the strategies for forest restoration, and also water management in irrigation systems. Yeah, of course, these topics have a lot of synergies with other sustainability development goals that you can read here, which are number 2, zero hunger, especially food security, and sustainable agriculture. Number 4, especially regarding the quality education. And number 7, 11, and 13, with affordable and clean energy, sustainable cities and communities, and climate action. Yes, and finally, in the research lines that SDG program is involved, we want to participate, of course, in all the research lines, but with a special focus in food systems, water, and SDG monitoring. I think I was just 4 minutes for the presentation, but this is all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andres, for the presentation. And we also learned that your research is, of course, very interesting. And one further reason for traveling to Cuenca is, of course, the wonderful marketplace and the lovely city and the cathedral that we've seen. So there are many incentives to visit Ecuador, of course. Thank you. Let me now give the chance to move on to the presentation of Professor Carlos Larrea. He is director from the Department of Environment and Sustainability at Universidad Andina Simón Bolívar in Ecuador. Carlos, welcome, and we look forward to your presentation.
Thank you very much. Good morning, good evening, good night to everybody here. I am pleased to introduce first my university. I am representing the Universidad Andina Simón Bolívar, the Andean University in Ecuador. It is an international institution linked with the Andean Community of Nations, which integrates 4 countries in South America: Ecuador, Colombia, Bolivia, and Peru. Our university works at the graduate level. And also is deeply involved in research for development. Our participation in the SDGnexus project is basically linked with 3 main objectives we already selected. The first one is the identification of hindrances, obstacles, to reach a sustainable improvement in living conditions, particularly in the cases of Ecuador and Colombia, linked to the structure of that almost all Andean countries share, an economy based on export of raw materials, particularly energy and large-scale mining of metals. This created a series of problems linked with the inability to reach an extended social distribution of benefits and also it's linked with a very highly intensive path to development. So we want also to find ways in which we can foster the transition to a low carbon and more integrative economy, particularly for the cases of Ecuador linked with the study of Colombia. The second goal is the identification and distribution among the civil society and local governments of a network of integrated or indicators for social and environmental development, particularly in the case of Ecuador. And finally, our third goal is linked with the analysis of the potential of agroecology as a way to reach food security in the case of Ecuador. This is very important because the economy of Ecuador and the social structure of Ecuador has a very strong participation of the peasantry and small family holders, and we have very serious long-term threats, mostly related with lack of water, unequal land distribution, and deterioration of soils. In this objective, I am pleased to find that we share these goals with our partners in South America, particularly with the University of Cuenca, the work that Stephen Peters is doing in Colombia, the National University of Colombia, the University of Los Andes. So I am very hopeful that this project will lead all of us to a solidified network of research and teaching, which are very important as a contribution about the role of our universities in the Andean countries to sustainable and equitable development. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carlos, for your interesting presentation. I'm now passing on to Ivan Lizarazo, Professor and Principal Investigator at the Faculty for Agricultural Sciences at Universidad Nacional de Colombia in Colombia. Carlos, we look forward to your presentation. Ivan.
Thank you, Helmut. Hello, everyone. I'm very pleased to speak to you today about Universidad Nacional de Colombia and its role within the SDGnexus Network. To begin, I'm very pleased to share some ideas about how to contribute to this global community of researchers committed to promote sustainable development goals. And so we want to start just to giving some context about Universidad Nacional. And I would like to explain that we are the top 1 public university in Colombia, that we have 9 campuses spread across the Colombian territory, including every natural or geographic region. And we have more than 50,000 students attending different programs at undergraduate and postgraduate level. Our faculty staff comprises more than 3,000 academics, and our community reflects the gender ethnic, socioeconomic, and rural-urban composition of the Colombian society. Thus, we are committed to promote a more inclusive society through education, research, and innovation. We have taken the responsibility to correct the unequal access to education experienced by low-income populations. And we have engaged in academic partnership to develop meaningful research, that is, research aiming to understand and transform the world. So this included our participation with other Colombian and German institutions in the Center of Excellence in Marine Sciences, CMarine, as well as the German Colombian Peace Institute, CAPAS, and now we hope to strengthen within this network our partnership with Justus Liebig University at Gießen, and to create a strong link with other SDGnexus partners. And we have adopted the concept of SDGs transformation to achieve the sustainable development goals. We think that this concept allows us to minimize negative interaction between individual goals, as well as to optimizing positive interactions. And this means that we need to shift from working in silos and to engage in multi-stakeholder, multi-goals initiatives. And in this context, we are willing to contribute to understand the food, land, water, and ecosystem nexus, and to build the foundation for the digital transformation required to move on sustainable development. In particular, we want to highlight our interest in exploiting the potential of geospatial data and technology for localizing the SDGs, that is, to making progress in the Agenda 2030 at local level. We also want to use land degradation neutrality as a framework to manage the food, land, water ecosystem nexus, but applying landscape-based approaches for developing soil water conservation policies and practices. In this regard, wetland conservation or restoration monitoring deserve special attention here, particularly in high mountain watersheds. Our team, UNAL, is a partnership between 3 research groups, 2 groups from the Human Science faculty, led by Luis Carlos Jimenez and Nora León, and 1 group from the Agrarian Science faculty, led by myself. And to finish, I will summarize that our SDGnexus team and at UNAL hopes to develop meaningful joint research projects with other partners, to qualify young scientists eager to change the world, as well as to engage in transnational education programs. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Ivan, for the presentation. Our next speaker is Professor Jorge Maldonado from the Faculty of Economy at Universidad de los Andes in Colombia.
Thank you, Helmut. Good morning, everyone in Latin America. Good afternoon in Europe, and good evening in Asia. I'm very pleased to be part of this network. And I want to present some of the background about the Universidad de los Andes in Bogotá, Colombia, which I am representing in this project. As Professor Mukherjee mentioned, Universidad de los Andes has a long tradition. It was founded in 1948, and it was the first private university in Colombia that was independent in terms of political or religious movements or parties. The university has focused on excellence since its foundation. Right now, the university offers 39 programs at the undergraduate level, 63 programs at the master level, and 16 PhD and 25 other postgraduate diplomas. The university has become a recognized research center at the global level. We, in 2021, has nominated as the part of the first 250 universities according to the QS, and the 4 at the Latin American level. We also have received 9 times the Higher Education Latin America University Rankings, and is probably the first private university in Colombia. I am very glad of being part of this network with Universidad Nacional de Colombia, which is at its time also the best and the first public university in Colombia. So we are putting together, I think, very interesting efforts. I am part of the Department of Economics. The Department of Economics was founded in 1948, And right now, it is recognized as one of the best departments of economics in Latin America. The research is done through the Center of Studies for Economic Development, SEDE, and the research and the academia is very closely put together. We have 36 faculty, 83% of them at the PhD level. And in the department, we offer the bachelor program, 2 master programs, and 1 PhD program, as well as other continuing education programs. The research in the Department of Economics focuses on different topics, including education, health, environment and natural resources, violence and conflict, among others, including also economic development. So we are very closely related with the SDG and the way in which they interact. But also the university is the host of the Center of the Sustainable Development Goals for Latin America and the Caribbean, that we call the COTS for its name in Spanish. This is part of the Sustainable Development Solution Network that is led by Jeffrey Sachs from the University of Colombia. And the goal of the SDG Center is to become a gathering place and a think tank about the SDGs, working together with other excellence universities, with firms, with governments, and with the civil society in the region, with the idea of becoming a platform for knowledge dissemination and to contribute to the building of the next generation of leaders on sustainable development. But also the SDG Center has an important role in following and monitoring the policies and the programs in the region that point out to the achievement of the SDGs. So right now, the COTS, the SDG Center, is focusing on the nexuses among the social, economic, and environmental aspects of life, and on the understanding of synergies, trade-offs, and the relationship between SDGs, which is a perfect match with what is our network working on. It is also focusing on the creation of inter-university teams and the creation of new networks to produce this interdisciplinary research of a high level at the regional and the sub-regional level. I am also very glad of having the opportunity of sharing this network with our colleagues from Ecuador for the regional level and from the colleagues from Asia for the more global level. And the SDG Center is also working on the formulation of new forms of measuring the achievement of the SDG goals. Right now, we have as involved researchers, myself from the Department of Economics as the coordinator of the project for Universidad de los Andes, Felipe Castro, which is the director of the LAC SDG Center, Jorge Montero, which is our PhD student. He has started his studies just this semester, and a postdoc position that we are defining very soon. That he will be or she will be starting on January 2021. We also, as part of the initiative, have started a hotbed of students working on SDGs and working on the idea of the nexuses between and among all of them. So given the research and the teaching experience of the university, we can contribute to the analysis of these nexuses, and we recognize that being part of this network will guarantee that we can keep this research at a high level and to have the opportunity of contributing to the development of new ideas across the other universities and research centers. In principle, we can collaborate with the 5 identified research areas, but of course, given the nature and the activities of the SDG LAC Center, there is a special interest on monitoring And given the activities that I carry out at the department, we are interested in urban and rural areas and natural resources, which is my specialty. So thank you very much. And again, I'm very glad of being part of this network of excellence.
Thank you, Jorge, for the presentation. Our next speaker is Professor Bohdan Kravchenko from the Graduate School of Development at the University of Central Asia in Kyrgyzstan, where he is also acting as a dean. So, Bohdan, you're welcome, and the floor is open for your presentation.
Well, thank you very much for this possibility to speak about the University of Central Asia. I will take the time allotment I will have to share the time allotment with my colleague from Tajikistan, because we are a regional university which operates in 3 countries, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, and Tajikistan. We're an unusual university. We're new, and we are located in Central Asian countries, and Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan are mountainous countries, low middle income countries, largely rural still, facing very significant economic challenges and facing very significant environmental challenges. So we have a division of labor here and so the Graduate School of Development has 4 entities. The entities that participate in this project, for which, and we're grateful for this opportunity, is the Institute of Public Policy and Administration, which is based in Kyrgyzstan, in Bishkek. You may have heard we had a revolution, counter-revolution, and putsch all within the space of 8 days, but things are calming. And then we have the Mountain Societies Research Institute that is based at our campus in Tajikistan and Khorog. Both campuses are based in poor mountain communities at an elevation of 2,200. The Institute of Public Policy, however, is located in Bishkek. So speaking about that institute and the work that we're doing within the context of this project, a big fundamental concern of ours is the issue of livelihoods in mountain communities. Now, these are countries where 92% of the territory is covered by mountains. What we have seen in Kyrgyzstan is the collapse of secondary towns and the deurbanization of societies, the growth of one megacity. So a very critical question is, how do you promote livelihoods, create jobs in these mountain communities? And so we have a researcher, Gulnara Junushalieva, that is going to look at what are the obstacles to, for example, micro, small, and medium business growth in these countries, in this context, in these communities. She's also looking at social entrepreneurship in mountain communities. So we are very, very concerned about this, this dimension, and it fits, I guess, with that governing the nexus between urbanization and sustainable development. We hope, we would be very, very interested to connect with universities that also operate in mountain settings, and to discuss insights into why is it that you don't see the kind of economic innovation and growth that there should be, and what are the barriers. Our preliminary investigation suggests that things that we thought were barriers may not necessarily be that, but there are others that are very, very significant. I will end here and pass on to Roy Seidel, who is the director of our Mountain Societies Institute. I apologize that I don't have a presentation the way our colleagues did. But you have the background over here, an event that we had, which was the 6th annual Life in Kyrgyzstan conference, which was held online this time, that had over 50 papers presented by people from the region and internationally, hundreds of participants exploring the critical issues facing livelihoods, social and economic problems in the region. Thank you for collaboration, and I look forward to perhaps some direct contacts with our colleagues in Latin America. We're a very small university. Our undergraduate program now has only 350 students, but we are located in a spectacular place with stunning campuses designed by the Japanese architect Aratai Sasaki. So you would do well to come and visit us for this experience. We are in our first phase of growth, and we're still in diapers, and we have a long road ahead of us. And I hope that you will join us in this journey. Roy, do you want to say a word, please?
Thank you, Bodan. Yeah, so Helmut, what do I have, like 5 minutes here? I think I saw that on the program, but.
Yes, Roy, you have 5 minutes as all the other colleagues, and I would first like to introduce you. Roy is director at the Mountain Societies Research Institute at the University of Central Asia in Tajikistan. And I would also like to take again the opportunity to first thank also Bogdan for his wonderful and insightful presentation. So Roy, now the floor is open for you.
Thank you so much, Helmut. And I appreciate everything that came on before this, as well as Bodan's introduction. I was particularly touched by seeing my colleagues from Colombia, who I've had an ongoing relationship for the last decade, particularly the National University of Colombia in Medellin. Actually, I had an appointment there, and very recently, we just co-edited the first book in Spanish on landslides for Latin America. So I have a very high respect for my Colombian colleagues. And I look forward to maybe making some connections on this project with them. Let me share my screen here with, I'll just use this to help guide the presentation I have. It's not very long. And the Mountain Societies Research Institute is one of the institutes that's focused in the Graduate School of Development. And as you can see on this little diagram here, we actually touch on a lot of the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly our natural resources management and food security component that deals with food systems, but it also deals with the rural areas part of Sustainable Development Goals. Water supplies are a very big part. Water supplies and land degradation are a very big part of our program as well. And then also natural hazards and disaster mitigation is something that's so critical in this area, because so many of the farms, so many of the communities are located in these narrow valleys with steep mountains on either side, and they're very subject to these hazards. So it's impossible to look at issues related to food security, natural resources management, without considering, in the context of this, the natural hazards that impact these people. This is a village in Barsam, just near Harag in Tajikistan, where the whole community was wiped out by a big debris flow that came from permafrost melting around the terminal moraine of a glacier. Luckily, the first wave of that debris flow was small and the people were able to get out, but the whole village was destroyed. So this just gives you some idea. Now, in the context of these programs, the main cross-cutting issue that we look at is climate change and climate anomalies. these climate change impacts almost everything you can see on this template here. We also are focusing, particularly for water supplies, on transboundary issues as well. So I think there's a lot of commonalities in what we are doing in Mountain Societies Research Institute and what some of the other groups are doing. We have, I'm not going to go through everyone. We have 17 staff members. I hope we have time to, we have recruited one person related, a postdoc on this program, Aslam, and I hope we have time to introduce him. I know he's on the call. I'd also acknowledge my associate director, Dr. Benjarihani, who, like myself, is a hydrologist, but also working in the broader issues of natural resources management. We have projects in Kyrgyzstan, and we have a group, a part of MSRI, Mountain Societies Research Institute, that is located up in Kyrgyzstan, largely the social science part of our group. And then the headquarters being in Harag in Tajikistan. And we now have projects in northern Afghanistan as well. One on climate change and climate change adaptation, which Benjarihani is leading. We collaborate with a number of universities and institutes around the world, of course in Germany, but also Canada, Switzerland, UK, Japan, and America. And our mission is basically to conduct research for development. And that's where this aspect of mountain livelihoods that Bohdan talked about. Everything that we do is applied research that's connected to the livelihoods of mountain communities. So research for development around mountain societies in Central Asia and disseminating strategic information that contributes to the improvement of local livelihoods and sustainable environmental development. In that context, we also, several of our members, including myself and Benjarihani, we teach at and have joint appointments with the School of Arts and Sciences at the university. We teach in the Earth and Environmental Sciences program. And in fact, we're graduating our first class this coming spring. So that's a major achievement of our program as well. So we're also involved in education. And when I heard what Ramona was talking about, I was very intrigued with that. We're doing this kind of work. We are involved. We had since I've been there, the first certificate program that we offered to Tajik and Afghan scholars who came up to Bishkek on natural resources management. It was a very intensive 3-week course and quite successful. So we do have experience doing these more condensed outreach programs, but we're also involved in the teaching at the university. So I guess with that, I thank Bjorn and everyone for involving us in this program, and I'm looking forward to very significant achievements in the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Roy, for the presentation. And our last speaker in this part of the program is Professor Abdul Hakim Salahuddinov. He is Vice Rector at the Tashkent Institute of Irrigation and Agricultural Mechanization Engineers in Uzbekistan. And Abdul Hakim, we look forward to your presentation.
Thank you, Professor Breitmeyer. Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear Professor Brata Mukherjee, President of the Gießen University and German Academic Exchange Service, dear colleagues, kind regards from Uzbekistan. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you all. I represent the Tashkent Institute of Irrigation and Agricultural Mechanization Engineers, TAMI, that's located in Tashkent, the capital city of the Republic of Uzbekistan. We are very glad to be one of the core partners of the SDGnexus Network project funded by DAAD. The TAMI is a first-class regionally recognized academic and research university known for its top programs in engineering, namely in irrigation, water resources management, environment, electrification, automation, agricultural mechanization, land management, and agricultural economics, with almost 100 years of traditions. The SDGnexus Network project, based on our two very important departments. First one is the Ecology and Water Resources Management Department, and second is UNESCO on Water Diplomacy, Water Resources Management, and Environmental Protection at TME. The Ecology and Water Resources Management Department is a progressive department with a modern view and approaches. It offers undergraduate, graduate, and PhD level degree programs. It has solid experience in international collaboration with partners from USA, EU, East and Central Asian countries on researching the scientific solution to critical problems of development, especially related with water and environmental sustainability. The UNESCO chair on water diplomacy, water resources management, and environmental protection, TME, is a model of education for sustainable development of TME and promotes an interdisciplinary and holistic approach to research, development, and knowledge transfer capacity in water diplomacy, water resources management, and environmental protection, as well as sustainable development by creating integrated interdisciplinary programs on education for sustainable development, especially at the graduate level, and continuing conducting international collaborative research projects. The TME SDGnexus project team actively involved in 4 topics of the Nexus project, and happy to collaborate with all our project within partners within this project. So the first topic we are involved is agricultural and livestock production practices and sustainable and equitable food systems. Second topic number 2 is freshwater and sanitation systems and resilient lives and sustainable livelihoods. And topic number 3 is urban and rural development and sustainable communities and territories. And finally, topic number 5 is the education and innovation and SDG progress and monitoring. The whole group of the professors and students, including postdoc Dr. Sana Ilyas and PhD students Jahangir Mirzakabilov, selected on competitive basis, will participate in the SDGnexus Network project activities on behalf of the TME team. So we believe that our collaboration and cooperation within the SDG Network project will be actively pursued as a means for making most efficient use of limited resources, and it will also help raise awareness of modern standards for research, instruction, and develop a commitment to practical research that finds solutions to real-world problems related to analyzing the synergies and trade-offs among individual SDGs. So, dear ladies and gentlemen, and participants of the SDG Network project, we express our gratitude to all of our partners in DAAD for the cooperation and support, and wish you all good health, luck, and further success in your not easy but very noble work. And special thanks for our colleagues and project board for organizing this meeting. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Salokhidinov, for your presentation. And we are also looking forward to collaborating with you and with all the other partners who presented during the last 40 minutes. I think this gave a wonderful impression about the rich and very exciting work that you are doing in the field. And I'm convinced that this provides an excellent basis for further collaboration between the different projects in the SDGnexus network. I would now like to continue with a small spotlight on the work that we in Gießen think could be well carried out together with our Latin American partners. But I also realized already from your presentations and from the presentations especially from the colleagues in Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan, that many overlaps exist also with regard to special topics that we address here. And I would now like to first welcome Professor Stefan Peters, our colleague from the Instituto Capaz, where he is the academic director. And also I would like to welcome Dr. Alicia Correa, who is a project member here in Gießen, a research associate in the SDGnexus Network. We are going to present 2-3 minutes each in short about the research topic that we are currently working on. And I would like to begin. So Björn, could you just show the slide that I produced? Well, I would like to show you two research areas that I'm currently working on with colleagues in my department at the Institute of Political Science, and also especially at the in the context of the SDGnexus Network, or especially at the ZOI. And the first research area deals with urbanization, food, and land use. Well, we've done a project together, which is coming to an end in a couple of months, dealing with the role of sustainability in the global regime complex for food. And we would like to, to carry out a new project that deals with the context between urbanization and food. And we would just like to look on, trend of urbanization as such, which is a mega trend at the global level, and how that impacts, of course, on rural areas. And currently we intend to develop a new proposal dealing with the role of global municipal networks as agents for transforming urban food systems. The second research area deals with water, ocean governance, and land-based pollution. We have there two people working at ZOI already on such topics. Pavlina Miteva deals with land-based marine pollution in Colombia and the Southeast Pacific Regional Sea. I see, of course, similar possible fields of cooperation with partners in Ecuador on issues related to marine pollution and ocean governance, but also related to all kinds of issues related to water. And a second project that is currently beginning is one by Katrin Stroben. She is dealing with the management of water scarcity, floods, and conflicts in global governance systems, especially to what extent international organizations or international institutions play a role for managing these issues. Generally speaking, I would say I, as a researcher in the field of international politics, I very much deal with the interlinkages between global politics, the national politics, and the local level in dealing and addressing all these different issues. So that's my special focus, and I would now like to move on to Stefan Peters.
Yeah, thank you very much, and good morning or good afternoon or good night to everyone. Yes, as Mr. Breitmeier already told, I'm working here in Colombia, in Bogota, at the German-Colombian Peace Institute, but also I'm a professor for peace studies at University of Gießen. And my research interests are basically at the intersection of development studies, peace and conflict studies, and Latin American studies. And I also did some work on comparative area studies that might be quite interesting also for this project, basically on the topic of natural resource-based development models. something which we could call perhaps comparative extractivism. And actually in this line of research, we have already developed some joint research, especially with Carlos Larrea from Universidad Andina Simón Bolívar. And basically in this project, I think there are, from my part, like three main research interests. The first is basically this issue of natural resource dependency and all that this implies for development studies, for development issues, but also the linkages with, for example, these new or not so new actually, but these ideas about green transformation, social ecological transformation. The second one would be actually based on peace and conflict studies, and especially the SDG 16, but also in linked to other SDGs, like for example, the gender equality, and then the women, peace, security agenda from the United Nations. And the third one is basically in my research, I think the core issue I'm always interested in is social issues, especially social inequalities related to education, but also to other topics. I think that's basically, well, one together, of course, with others, but one of the main topics for development in the 21st century. So really glad to be part of this network and hope to work and collaborate with all of you.
Thank you, Stefan Peters, for this presentation. The floor is now open for Alicia.
Thank you very much. I am Alicia Correa, a research associate in Justus Liebig University, and I'm glad today to present to you one of the examples. We want to, on the Nexus, we want to achieve in Latin America to answer the question of how can the water, energy, and food sectors be made sustainable to adapt to future climate change, and this particularly in the region between the Andean mountains towards the diverse Amazon floodplain. So for that, I would like to share my screen. Okay, I guess now it's in full presentation, is it? Great. So to briefly show you a representation of the altitudinal transect that is the focus of our study, we developed the diagram that you can see now in your screen. From the upper part in the Andean mountains, considered as water towers and provider of ecosystem service for more than 100 million people, the water is produced and moving downstream, where hydropower generation, fish farming, or water quality control takes place. Agriculture, of course, is the largest consumer of fresh water in the world. And in our case, basically, coffee, cacao, and banana are some of the main crops from where a small local economy develops, similar to several or other rural economies in the global south. Finally, downstream, in the Amazon floodplain, wide rivers are used for transport or to help the dynamic in the socio-economical activities, taking into account that this is as well a hotspot for biodiversity. Below the diagram, you will see in some bullet points what could be potentially effects of the climate change in the region. So glacier melts, ecosystem degradation impacts, and the quality of soil, degradation of the quality of water, biodiversity loss, and as well as change in the moisture that is transported to uplands. Every of these components are directly related with one specific or more sustainable development goals. And there is, of course, imminent connections, interactions, and trade-offs between them. To get some scientific evidence and a good base for political strategies to be adapted to climate change, we can only reach these points if we analyze the synergies and trade-offs between environmental and socioeconomic factors and the web nexus. To analyze the impact of future climate change and perhaps perform some web-based modeling, And last, to be able to identify policies for adaptation. Consider, of course, local knowledge, local needs, and taking into account gender inclusive strategies. With these few points and with this very short look of what is our focus, one of our focus of study in Latin America, the SDGnexus Network will contribute to a better implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals in the region. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alicia. And we have now, before we conclude this meeting, a second spotlight on Central Asia with two colleagues, Professor Martin Petrick, one of the principal investigators here from Gießen, will present his interests in collaborations with institutions in Central Asia, and that will be, he will then be followed by Dr. Sarah Robinson, an independent researcher from France who is also collaborating regularly with the SDGnexus project. Well, Martin, the floor is open for you.
Thank you very much, Helmut, and thanks to everyone in the group of colleagues here. I feel quite moved to see this rich diversity of people, many of whom I've been collaborating for years. Great to have you in this kickoff event. My name is Martin Petrick. I'm a professor of agricultural, food and environmental policy here at Justus Liebig University in Gießen. In the following few minutes, Sarah Robinson, who is my co-presenter today, and I have arranged for a labor sharing in the sense that I will first give a kind of bird's eye view on Central Asia as a region and the research focus, and then Sarah will go a bit more in depth into one of the main foci that we already identified in the SDGnexus Network project. So I'm also going to share my screen. Yeah, this is the spotlight on Central Asia, which is a landlocked endorheic basin with continental climate, to describe a few of the major geographic characteristics. Endorheic meaning that the rivers and water flows actually end up in continental lakes, the best known, the Caspian Sea, which you can also identify here on this map. All the nation states we are looking at emerged from the Soviet Union, and yeah, the countries are all rich in natural resources in one way or the other, some of them more commercially attractive, others less, such as hydrocarbons, metals, or agriculture. And land access and land use is one of the critical political questions in all of these countries, and I think that's something that also connects the region to Latin America. I try to not put in too many bullet points on my slides. I rather draw on some photos to illustrate to you a bit the research topics that we have in mind for Central Asia. Here you see in the middle the famous round circle-formed bread loaves that you find all across Central Asia, especially in Uzbekistan. And food and agriculture is certainly one of the key areas that we are interested in. Central Asia is a country of a rich cultural heritage. This is a photo from the ancient Samarkand, but it is also an exporter of various goods and agriculturally determined economic region. Cotton is one of the has been one of the driving forces of the agricultural economy. As well as livestock, on which many people place much hope as a future engine of agricultural growth. But only usually agriculture is viable if water can be brought to the crops and to the animals, so that irrigation and cross-border issues also of irrigation are of central importance. As several colleagues mentioned already, Central Asia is also characterized by spectacular mountain views and mountain areas. Here a picture from Tajikistan, which we will certainly also have in mind as one of our foci that relate to the 5 major topics identified in the SDGnexus Network that Lutz Breuer in the beginning mentioned to us. Yeah, to focus a bit more, zoom in a bit, this map is basically doing two things. It shows the borders and major geographic features of Central Asia, but it also, the political borders I mean, but it also highlights in dark green here, the irrigated versus in light green, the non-irrigated areas. And these features are certainly responsible for the type of agriculture that is taking place in the region. Cotton wheat produced on irrigated cropland, also intensive fruit and vegetable. And on the other hand, we find huge arid rangelands that are basically viable only for livestock. Yeah, with this, I already gave you a short glimpse into the second part of the presentation, which is now going to be presented by my colleague, Sarah Robinson.
Thank you, Martin, and welcome, Sarah.
I'm sorry. Thank you. My name is Sarah Robinson. I've been working for 20 years on rangeland and livestock systems in Central Asia, looking also at property rights and agricultural systems. And I've been working this year in 2020 at JLU with Martin, doing a review of SDG challenges and trade-offs in the livestock sector. Looking at natural resource management, rangelands, fodder production, human diet and health, and value chains. So the synergies and trade-offs through all these different aspects of livestock production. And we identified the most significant trade-offs in the livestock sector. In this diagram here, you can see them. So, for example, some of the trade-offs we found, if you imagine commercialization of the livestock sector through growth and increased productivity, may, if it excludes smallholder farmers, have negative impacts on SDG objectives such as food security and no poverty. Rising incomes as the economy grows may have negative health incomes if consumption of livestock products increases too much, leading to changes in cardiovascular disease or obesity. Also thinking about diets, greater demand for livestock products, which may also include improvements in health, food security, may lead to the over-exploitation of feeding resources on land and through availability of precious water resources, which are extremely rare in Central Asia. More productive small producers may degrade environmental resources here, and economic growth across the economy as a whole, again, may put pressure on key resources for livestock. So one of the things, one of the aspects we've been looking at in our report is a pathway towards improving productivity in the livestock sector, which is intensification. So intensification, we understand to mean improvement of feeding quality and quantity for livestock, feeding intensity. And globally, this has led to huge improvements in productivity of livestock and availability of products, output related to the inputs in feed which are provided. But in Central Asia, the opposite has been the case. Since the collapse of the Soviet Union, the availability of feed, and especially quality feed, supplementary feed grown on arable land, has decreased, as you can see from this graph, which illustrates the decrease in area planted to fodder crops since as a proportion of that in 1992. So we've seen a de-intensification in this in the region. Well, what would a re-intensification mean? So if there's going to be an increase in fodder production, supplementary feeding, and improved animal genetics and husbandry to improve livestock productivity, this would obviously involve SDG synergies with a number of SDGs. You've got increased productivity of agriculture, which comes under SDG 2 on food security, and you also have a reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, because the higher quality feed that you give to livestock, the lower the production of methane, which is the main greenhouse gas from the livestock sector. And in Central Asia, agricultural emissions are dominated by this kind of this kind of emission from enteric fermentation. The absolute amount of land needed per unit of livestock production will decrease. Individual animal performance will improve and incomes from livestock may grow, particularly in dairy. But there are many trade-offs to intensification. If you're going to use arable land to produce feed, there are high opportunity costs because you could be using the same land for cash crops or for food for human consumption. Fodder production has a high nitrogen and water footprint through irrigation and use of fertilizer. In Central Asia, as Martin mentioned, intensification depends largely on irrigation, uses very scarce water resources, and suffers from poor infrastructure, very poor governance, and causes severe soil salinization. There are also economic issues with intensification. It's not always the optimal solution, as evidenced by the tendency for large commercial meat producers to extensify. So as they grow larger, beef producers, for example, are more likely to use less supplementary feed and make greater use of pastures, which has, again, other implications for SDGs around life on land and, again, greenhouse gas emissions. Individual animal performance is not the main goal of all producers. So we must remember that SDG trade-offs are not the same for all farmers. Small farmers, for them, livestock production is primarily for savings and insurance. So livestock play a role, to cover risk and to smooth consumption over periods of time. So for those producers, it's better to keep a larger number of mediocrely productive animals than to have a smaller number of highly performing animals. So these are examples. This is just one. I'm zooming into one example of the kinds of SDG trade-offs that we get in food systems. And in December, we're going to hold an SDGnexus Network workshop on this topic of livestock production in Central Asia, and we'll present what's going on at JLU in that respect, and hear from our partners in Central Asia on their past research on livestock and future plans. And then we'll hopefully discuss some synergies and think about a research agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah. And also, again, thanks to Martin for their presentation on the topics that they would especially like to work on together with colleagues in Central Asia. Now, well, we are now coming to an end of this, conference, and I would first like again thank to all the presenters who gave wonderful and insightful presentations from which we learned a lot. And in that respect, I think the conference fulfilled its goals more than we could expect, because we, of course, knew who the partners are, but we didn't know each of the partners, and so, or single individuals didn't know all the partners. And so I think we learned a lot about your academic backgrounds, about your motivations, your research interests, about your environments, and what you are doing. And we also, I think, learned a lot regarding the possible research topics that we could be collaborating on with single or some partners within the regions, but also I think we should not forget we can also collaborate between regions. And I think there have been some overlaps became already obvious today in the presentations, and maybe we should be working on this also in the future. We will continue these discussions first in regional meetings. I think Sarah already mentioned one of the two regional meetings that take place relatively soon in the coming weeks. And I would also like to thank all participants. I think we had around a bit less than 50 participants who joined this meeting and this conference today. I would also like to thank the members of the project advisory board, and I realized that some members also joined us today, and I'm grateful for their participation in the board, and we look forward to collaborating with you also in the future. Well, so finally, I would again like to thank all colleagues who contributed to the conference today, and also to Björn for organizing this so well and for maintaining or providing this excellent environment and this platform. And I also would like to express that I'm a bit relieved that all things went so well, and the communication could be upheld and that it worked pretty well. So many thanks to you, and have a nice day in Latin America, and of course a very good sleep, especially to Roy and all the colleagues in East Central Asia, and a good final work day to people in Europe and especially in Germany. So many thanks and goodbye. See you relatively soon, and thank you again.
Thank you.